I think about a little one. Like if you think about Martin Luther King, he gets 1 million people to march in Washington because he says, I have a dream. He didn't say, I have a plan. Like plans for people.
One of the places I wanted to start was about your career as this kind of coach, speaker, team building, high performance, etc. And I want to ask kind of how you first got into this space, because I know you were sort of in the corporate realm for a while, and then landed in this area. I'd love if you to just tell us, where did this transition start? Like, was there a kind of moment where you realized, actually, you know what, I'm going to do this now, and I'm going to go 100% into this direction? I'd love to kind of wind back the clock and hear that story.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, great. So what happened was, so there's the test match version. I'll give you the 2020 version, just so it doesn't take up the whole podcast. So what happened was, when I was a young fella, I was I didn't know. I was extremely shy. So when I'd meet someone, I would freak out. I would avoid any social contact, anything around people. Apart from my family, I became excessively uncomfortable in a way that was getting in the way. I'm not just talking shyness here, way beyond that. And then I started my career at ANZ, and what would happen is, every time we had training, I wouldn't go to work. It was that debilitating for me to be around people. And then I knew I had to do something to fix it. And because it was just, it was beyond shyness. So back then I didn't know, well, I don't know, I think there was executive coaching and all that sort of stuff. So you won't believe what I did. I looked up a psychologist in the city where I worked. I worked at ANZ in Melbourne, and I took my paycheck to her and I showed her what I was. And back then, from memory, I was getting paid about $13,000 or $12,000 a year. And I said to her, I made a commitment to spend 10% of my wage on developing myself. How many sessions will that buy me? And she said, what do you think's wrong with you? And we started talking. And anyway, she told me I had something called social anxiety disorder or social phobia. So what that means is, so when I'd meet someone, like I said, just to shake their hand, I would have a visceral response. So meaning in my body. So, when you're nervous, you feel it in your tummy, for example, you get butterflies and what have you. When I'd meet someone, my tongue would expand in my mouth 3 times the size it is, and I'd choke. So I always had to have water. I don't need it now, and I'd have to quickly. And back then we didn't have bottles of water, so I was like a teenager carrying around a drink bottle like I was in grade 1, and I'd quickly drink the water, and it would make my tongue go back to its normal size. And so this social phobia was destroying me. And then I was going to the psychologist. And just to give you perspective, when you have social phobia, you're embarrassed of everything. So my parents, until I got married, didn't know I was going to the psychologist. I kept it as a secret. I was embarrassed. None of my friends knew. No one knew. And I was walking back from Collins Street. I was walking back to the office where I worked after an appointment, and I saw there used to be a bookshop called Angus and Robertson, and they had $1 bin there of these books that nobody wanted. And there was a book there called Getting the Best Out of Yourself and Others. And it was $1. So I bought it, and I hadn't read a book since high school, and I read it in a day and a half. I read it voraciously, and it completely transformed everything about the way I carry myself, my aspirations about what I want to do. It changed everything. And I made a commitment with myself, with everything that I read, I'm going to practice it on people. So I used my work as a living lab. And the more and more I did it, instead of getting shy being around people, like anything around people drew me like a magnet. And I just became obsessed obsessed in. So I was 19 then, and I made a commitment with myself. I'm going to read 30 books every year just on psychology. I want to know why people do what they do. And I've kept that habit. I do a minimum of 30. I'm not saying it to impress you, just to impress upon you what worked for me. And I found I was more and more massively intrigued by people. So no matter what job I had at ANZ, winning or more sales or project completions were nice, but helping people grow or change or get rid of a fear or transform an aspect of themselves that's holding them back, that completely floated my boat. So then I just turned it into a career. I actually started getting invited to internal ANZ team building functions to present. And I started getting invited to a lot of those. I was a project manager and team leader and all that at the time. And then I started thinking, I love that bit of my job more than my actual jobs. So that's how I started. I did. I loved it. I was obsessed in it. And reading, I couldn't get enough of it. I couldn't get enough of helping people. And people started to learn about it at ANZ. And I used to get phone calls from people I didn't know. And they used to say, we heard you're the job whisperer. And what I used to do is help people get jobs. And I loved it. So before I ever charged $1 for my coaching, I coached over 1,000 hours free. I've got it all documented. And all I did was help people either how to, manage their nerves to get through an interview or have a conversation with their boss or personal motivation. So that's how I got into it. It became an obsession, and I got known for it. And then for the last 5 years of my career, I actually did it as a career where I did coaching, team building, personal transformation events. But yeah, so ANZ gave me that opportunity in the last 5 years of my career to do that as a.
That was a very cool story, and a few things I picked up there. So sometimes people talk about making your mess your message. I don't know if you've heard that saying before, but it's where you face a problem that's so difficult for you that others find easy, but then when you learn how to do it, you now have this perspective of how to approach the problem and things in a way that others really can't appreciate. And so it makes you able to explain and teach those kinds of things in a lot more depth because you've had to wrestle with it more. And so I think that's definitely something that's come out of your story, I feel, is that having to sort of tackle that challenge so much.
100%. I'm a big believer in rock bottom will teach you things that mountaintops won't teach you. And when you're at rock bottom, which I was, when people are hearing this, if someone's got social anxiety or they've had social phobia, whatever you want to call it, they'll appreciate it is, it negatively impacts every area of your life. So having to climb over the mountain of it, it was a brilliant teacher. I wouldn't take it back for a second.
No, it's super cool. It's really cool to see see people go from something that's really inhibiting them and going from somewhere that's not great and then really transforming it into becoming almost a superpower. So so well done. One thing you mentioned there as well was there's a lot there, reading the books I think is really great, but you mentioned spending 10% of your income on things that growing your skills and is that something that you still do, or is that something that you did for a period and then how does that
I still do it now. I've been doing it since I was 19. So obviously I look at what I need now, and so I have two categories. What do I need now and what do I need next? And it's something I always recommend to all my private clients as well. We actually have three categories. What do I need now? So what's important now, what's important next, and what's important next plus long term. So I think about something I might need or that I want to work on, or that I see that's an issue for my clients. And my strategy is just to find someone who I think is the best of the best. And whether that means getting a plane or buying their programs or getting coaching, I do that, and I'm a big believer in that now. James, the reason I do it, I can't believe how people would lose a mobile phone or something will happen to their car and they'll just all of a sudden find the money and find the funds and wouldn't blink, you know, to do that. But for ourselves, like people go, oh, that book's $40, you know. Can I get it for 5 or 10? And I just feel like a lot of times I've got my observation is the way we are in our careers or at work is the complete opposite to the way, like when I think of professional, I think of sports, and I think my drive is for people to flip that in their career. It's something that I did because if we think about us in our jobs, we spend 90% on the field doing our stuff and playing, and 10% might be training. And then when we get that 10% training, we don't want to go because we already know it, right? And we're jaded and all the rest of it. Whereas in the field of sports, they spend 90% coaching, reflection, fine tuning, tidying up those messy corners to make them absolutely elite. And then the 10% when they perform, they're always improving. And I see the corporate world is the opposite to that. So I know in my own business, I've never let that obsession for learning. I've just never dropped it. But I find it easy, I must admit as well, just because I enjoy it. And I just think that my observation is my perspectives or my insights or whatever I share here today, to me, it's applicable whether you're early in your career, whether you're emerging, whether you're experienced or whether you're established. Solid principles are solid principles in any weather and in any stage of your career. And I think a lot of people treat my observation is their career is a bit like a hobby instead of a profession. And professionals go to that nth degree to want to be the best. And I get inspired by people like that, and that's informed a lot of my own behaviors around that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great thought. And I think when you think about sort of investing, like let's say, like the 10% you're investing in yourself is probably like disposable income in the sense that you can sort of do whatever, whether it's save, spend, or whatever. So I think I've been thinking about this a fair bit recently, where it's like the 10% or whatever percent you choose, do you sort of save that and perhaps get like 5 or 10% or whatever in the stock market even, or is it something you invest in yourself and then can you generate some kind of return? So particularly for yourself with like your own business and things like that, where, you know, like learning one extra thing might do some multiple on your business, right? And so it can be
to me, the return is orders of magnitude. It's the beauty of obviously being, you know, a professional coach, speaker, facilitator, like getting to work with people. The return can many times be instantaneous. So the return, obviously, I have a commercial return that works for my business, but I'm in the people business, so seeing the returns for them as well. So if I notice people are struggling with something, and it doesn't necessarily mean coaching. So if I think about when we all switched to doing Zoom calls and everything went online, I used my 10% then to invest in a lot of equipment here. So when I do calls with people, I want it to feel almost like I'm in the room, and so I actually got coaching on technical stuff about how to set up lights, how to audio, all that sort of stuff. So it's because a lot of my clients, I couldn't get to them. I thought even if we're on camera, it's got to be live. So it's always looking for that. It's hard to explain. Like in my business, the returns or everything you do is almost it's dictated, and it's a need from your clients, and it's good because it gives me things that I would never think about. I would never have thought about spending. So I nearly spent $25,000 on equipment. And I probably got ripped off because I don't know what I'm doing. So if someone says buy something, I just buy it. So it's a way to keep me on the edge. So the more and more things my clients are grappling with, and the more complex they get, it's something that will then go, okay, I'm going to learn more about that now, or I'm going to get invested in that, or I'm going to find someone who's good at that and get coaching from them. Yeah, so that's how it works for me anyway. And I just wish more people did it in their career, though.
No, it's an interesting perspective. What do you think when you were like? I think you said you were 19, right, when you first started that process. What are the kinds of things that you would look for at that stage? Was it just more like books and like you said you went to a psychologist, those kinds of things? Like what sort of things were you looking to like skills to improve at that stage?
You know what's funny, James? What I was looking for back then, I still see now in my clients, and it was confidence. If I was to line up 100 of my clients, and I coach and work with diverse industries and diverse people. So I work with some people that are in their last 2 years of school, year 11 and 12, getting them ready for the corporate world. And I work with some people, like I work with 2 CEOs. I work with people that run their own businesses, gyms, hairdressing, a lot of people in banking, law, hugely diverse. And whether it's, and I mean diverse in role, in age, everything. And if I lined up 100 of them, the root cause of what people are working on is confidence, and is what I was looking for early on when I had the social anxiety. And I still see that is the number one blocker for people is there's 3 outcomes that I always recommend for people. The first one is really understanding and tapping into your innate strengths. The things that are almost, like, to use one of your words, your superpower. So to ask yourself, how do I show up as genuine standout talent? Because what I see with a lot of people, when they might start to feel a little bit stuck, they try to work their way out of it. And that's working hard, not smart. And the other end of that spectrum is what I would call unleashing confidence. And that is still the number one thing, irrespective of where people are, that I see people working on, and that I was working on at the start. Was many years of just confidence building. The second outcome that I always recommend for people to look at is what I would call, it's not just leadership, is what I would call inspiring boldness. When you're a leader, it's about inspiring that boldness in people. I think about a little one, like if you think about Martin Luther King, he gets 1 million people to march in Washington because he says, I have a dream. He didn't say, I have a plan. Like, plans bore people, and it sounds like hard work. In fact, he inspired boldness in people. And what I mean by that is, like, I hate the word team building. To me, put 5 people in the room, you've got a team, right? To me, to be a leader is asking yourself, how do I unleash fearless contributors that are driven by a purpose? Where people will, you don't have to be there cheerleading them and motivating them all the time. They unleash this fearless contribution, and they're strongly driven by a purpose. And as opposed to, and those sort of teams move out of what I would call survival mode, where they start to really evoke the character in the team. And the third one is the one that I think people struggle with the most at a bigger level, forget the internal blockage, which is change. So be an intentional change maker. You've heard that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I hate that. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's ridiculous, right? We wouldn't have Uber and Airbnb and all these other things without that. And for anyone when you're in a role, and no matter what you're doing, is how can I create an impact that's transformational? So if you can create an impact that's transformational, that's turning one. This is the caterpillar to butterfly. Not a change, something that's transformational, and that's your litmus test or your scoreboard. You can't go wrong, because they're the people that are more visible, more valuable, and more connected in organizations. So going from all effort in a job to no impact to really expanding your influence, because a lot of people are putting in a lot of effort, but busyness is very different to achievement. So they're the 3 outcomes for me that that matter most.
Yeah.
And I find myself, your question was about how do I choose what I'm going to work on, and what I started with confidence, and I find those 3 areas around innate strengths, inspiring boldness, and being an intentional change maker are the areas I'm always looking at for myself, and that my clients are always looking for, or to do something in that realm as well.
Yeah. Well, the confidence piece is interesting. I wonder, like, how would someone go about improving their confidence? Like, what does that look like? Because I think one of the things that I think about with that is like confidence. So maybe first comes courage, and then you can be confident after that.
Yep.
So like if you kind of need some, once you're courageous and you like, it's like learning how to do something for the first time. Like you can't be confident in tying your shoes for the first time, or tying your shoes if you've never done it before, right? So I think having the courage to do those things allows you to be confident. But I wonder if you have any thoughts on that, and kind of becoming more confident, and the kind of strategies that someone can take to use.
So you're bang on with the first one. So there's three parts: courage, conscious choice, and consistency. So first of all, I'm just going to pick public speaking because that's the number one fear in the world, right? And I know people even freak out. Some people if your boss is the one, they go, mate, can you run the team meeting? And you go, okay. And you think, I don't want to run the team meeting, right? So if I look at a simple thing like that is first of all having courage. So, and what courage means is it's actually courage to yourself, acknowledging, this is something I need to fix. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. I have to change this. And a lot of people know they need to change things, but to do something about it you've got to have the guts to do it. The next thing is you have to make a conscious choice. You have to. You can't sort of say, I'll be courageous when I've had 10 hours sleep and it's 22 degrees and there's a slight breeze and I'm in a good mood. You've got to make a conscious choice to show up. And then the third one is consistency. I'm a big believer. And by the way, if you didn't do the first two, do the third one because it's the most important, is consistency. That's how you build confidence. So as an example, if we take public speaking for an example, you don't just do one speech at your brother's wedding and go, okay, I've got that nailed now. That's one event. That's not going to make it. Or if you want to get fit, you don't say, I'll do my quarterly gym visit. That'll really work for me. So you've got to, so long-term consistency always beats short-term intensity. Short-term intensity is getting fired up or watching, what was that Michael Jordan
The Last Dance
series that was on The Last Dance, watching something like that, or there used to be a show on television called The Biggest Loser. And I did some work in the fitness industry, and when The Biggest Loser came on, everyone went out and bought a treadmill, right? Which research shows people use between 3 and 7 times.
Wow.
Ever. Treadmills are awesome to hang your clothes on if you need more clothes, by the way.
Expensive.
People go, and short-term intensity is that getting fired up because you saw something. So that's intensity. Or preparing, cramming because you've got to, present at school, or like I said, do a speech for your brother or whatever it may be. Whereas consistency is doing the small things when you really don't feel like doing them. So it's like I'm an early riser and go to the gym every morning. It is really hard in winter.
Yeah.
It's so easy in summer. So I get up at 4:30 every day.
Wow.
Because that's the only time I can fit my exercise in with 2 kids. And man, it's hard. But you don't want to not do anything and then wait till November when the weather gets good and go, I better get fit in the last 30 days before Christmas. So consistency, I'm a big believer, is the number one building block for confidence. But those 3 things, having the guts, I'll give you another simple example. It's getting fit. It's just it's actually acknowledging to yourself. The courage is to acknowledge to yourself and go, I need to make a change. I'm unfit. The conscious choice is going to the gym, and it's easy to go to the gym and get a program. That's what most people like about going to the gym. They get their little fancy program and go, on Monday I'll do cardio, and on Wednesday I'll do boxing. And the third bit about consistency is actually going to the gym. There'll be people listening to this and watching this that have bought gym memberships and never used them because they got fired up. There was some intensity. So courage, conscious choice, consistency. are the simple ways to build courage. Having said that, with anything to do with people, one size fits none. That's really the golden rule. Of course, there's some standard principles, but the way people go about it, it's a blend of those three things. But if I had to give one, it would be consistency. Find that thing and do it in a really small way and keep doing it. Like I said, like getting fit or being healthy or eating right or meditating or whatever.
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of like the gym. The gym analogy, I feel, can be applied to many many things. It's all about, like, there's just so many, like, don't compare yourself to others, be consistent, like follow, like maybe track your progress as well, like maybe have some structure around, like have some time that you allocate towards doing it. If you can sort of apply those kinds of principles to other things, then you can have a similar successes in other areas, I think.
The only thing I will say is that, how I said one size fits none? I always compare myself to others. Because for me, that inspires me. I don't get demoralized by it. So that, for me, works for me.
Yeah.
So when I see, and I'm always looking at it, I think I'm worse than everyone in the team. So it actually keeps me, it keeps me motivated. Yeah.
No, that's a good point too.
That works. That little one anyway, that works for me. Tracking stuff. I track my whole life on apps.
Yeah.
So the tracking, all that stuff works. But like I said, it's the combination. One size fits none with all this stuff, and it's finding the strategies. Which ones work for you?
Yeah. No, it's a great point, because I think there's a lot of even advice that gets given. I think it's almost like you need to, like you mentioned earlier, like with the book that you were reading and sort of creating your life as this kind of experiment where you would read the content or whatever, and then go and actually try stuff and see what actually happened. And I think that's critical, instead of just reading something and being like, oh, that's how you do that, cool, like next thing, but really sort of, how does this apply to me? Like, what's my experience with this? Like, did it work for me? Because a lot of these things, it might work out of 1,000 people, it might work on average for most people, but you still need to sort of try to test things out yourself. I think that's.
I think reading's the easy bit. The implementing's the hard bit.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of people there's two camps. There's what I call knowers, and there's three camps really. There's the knowers, there's the learners that just are obsessed in learning, like it's an addiction to insights. The knowers already know everything because they learned on Instagram or TikTok. And then there's the implementers, and they're the people that actually take it. It's, what, I think it's a simple thing. Like, imagine reading about a bike. If you've never ever, if you had not seen a bike in your life, so I have a race. I used to do long bike rides. If you'd never seen one in your life, and I brought one up now on the screen, and had these little thin tires, and I said, and I wrote, and I go, and I've written a book about it, and the book says, you need to, sit on the seat and equally distribute your weight on both sides of the frame, and keep the pedals working at a good revolution so you don't fall over. You can read about that for days, and if I left you with the bike, you're not going to be able to ride it.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you can then go, so that's what the knowers do. They go, oh, yeah, I know that now. I read that. Doesn't mean they can ride the bike. The learners are the type that they read that book, then they go, now I'm going to get another book. Now I'm going to get another book. Now I'm going to listen to a podcast. And the implementers, they just get on the bike and have a crack, and they fall over and they graze their knees and hopefully don't do too much damage. But they'll be further in an hour than someone who can spend days and weeks researching something. So implementing is critical. There's an old saying, well done is better than well said. And that stuck with me, and I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah. No, that's great. I'll borrow that one, I think. That's pretty cool. I like it. A question I have for you is around, like, I know some of the stuff you teach and help people with is sort of performing well and high performance in the workplace. And I wonder, I know it might be hard to distill this down, but, perhaps different people at different stages want to become, they're here and they want to go higher, take the next level, etc. I wonder if there's any common things between people, things that they should improve to sort of increase their performance, or things that you help people with? We spoke about confidence being a big one. But I wonder if there's anything there that, the things that if people sort of unblocked themselves in these particular areas that would sort of elevate their performance.
Yeah. I think the first one is there's 4 really powerful assumptions that we should all make. I don't know whether they're leadership assumptions, but for me, they're very powerful assumptions. Number 1 is you choose how you think. You're not pre-programmed. Then you choose how you communicate. So you're responsible for the words that come out of your mouth. So it's thinking, it's communication. No matter where you are, you have the capacity to change, is the third one. And the fourth one is I'm a big believer in you can always improve. So that's the first assumptions. So I choose how I think. I choose how I communicate. I can always improve. And I've got the capacity to change. So for me, they're the first 4 things. And in my experience working with people over many years now, I almost fell into coaching, like I've shared with you already, because I read books. I was going to say sharing with people, shoved it down people's throats because I was so excited about what I was reading. And then people started asking me advice. So I started falling into this coaching and mentoring just through almost luck or through sharing it with my friends. And I've already mentioned this. It seems to be people. So the goal for all of us in an organization or in a business is, how do I become more visible, more valuable, and more connected? And so always asking yourself, how do I get more visible, more valuable, more connected? And the 3 areas to think about are, so first of all, are your personal development. That is hands down the thing to focus on first. I'll give you in what I think in order. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by personal development, you know the one about, you're on the plane, there's a loss of cabin pressure at altitude, a mask drops from the ceiling. Put it on yourself first before you start trying to help everyone else and get involved in other things and say, hey, can I have a drink? And get yourself right first. So that's what I call, great me. And then the next one is the leadership part, which is the great we. So learn how to become a great leader. Now, there's so many things around leadership. There's over 3,000 leadership books produced every year. It's probably more now with self-publishing. Mm. And I think a simple one for leadership is just to ask yourself, if everyone did what I did, would the team be better off? That's a real simple one. So first of all, personal development. Second of all, you work on your leadership. And then the third one is now start to expand and work on having an impact or changing or transforming what you do within your organization. Like, we know, I'm a big sports fanatic, and I love seeing these players that have completely transformed the sport because of the way they are, whether it's a certain type of football or the way someone goes about their cricket. I was going to give football examples, but I'll only be giving Hawthorn examples, so I won't do that. I'm put people off. Yeah. I'm a massive Hawthorn fan. So, who do you barrack for, by the way?
I'm a Crows man. It's unfortunate at the moment, but
well, you know what? When the Crows played Hawthorn, I don't know if you know, you weren't born. 1991, when the Crows came into the league, the first match they ever played at Football Park was against Hawthorn, and I think we lost by 85 points.
Well, there you go.
And we went on to win the premiership years as a side note. So that third one, like I said, first is about focus on some personal development, great me, great we, so team stuff, and then us. So me, we, and then us. Mm-hmm. So focusing, having your outward focus, and it could be around, you could be doing something about shifting the way things are done in an industry or transforming the way just a process is being done. But I'm a big believer in focusing on those 3 areas of the personal, leadership, and then organizational or change. But always, start with yourself first. And I've said this, just tidy up the messy corners in your behavioral makeup. So that's always the first step. And if I was to think about within personal development,
Mm.
one of the highest selling social science books in the world is Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I couldn't think of a better. I've read over 700 books just because I'm a nerd, and it is my top 5 books of all time.
Yeah, wow.
And a great place to start.
Yeah, that's cool. I have to get that one out and have a read. I have to pick your knowledge about which books you enjoy the most.
Look, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, Emotional Intelligence, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is another amazing book. Mindset by Carol Dweck, and there's a book, if ever you're feeling like life's tough, there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He was incarcerated in Auschwitz, and just to read his story, that was transformational for me. Reading that, I've never felt like a victim again and never felt sorry for myself. But I always think what he went through is mind-bending. Coming back from adversity was incredible.
No, I've read that one. I think it's an incredible story for sure.
And I think someone just bought the rights to it. I don't know who that wants to. Some famous Hollywood person. They want to make it into a movie. Incredible. I don't know about you. I never like to watch a movie after I've read the book.
True. Especially not one like that. It'd be an interesting movie, I feel.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it, but an incredible book.
No, for sure. That's really cool. I think reading is so important. It's something that I try and do as well, not as consistently as you, but I've tried to read. I think it's important to sort of get knowledge from. There's like the ways of learning. Like I can try and learn something myself, or I can ask a friend, or I can maybe the next best thing is reading about things and learning about things from people that are outside your immediate circle. And I think that's where you kind of have the courses, books, videos, whatever. This kind of way of learning, I think, is can be really useful, and you can sort of get.
And I use TED Talks a lot. I love watching them and learning things that I particularly love learning from things that are completely outside my own industry or the industry that I'm working with. So if I'm working with, I don't know, BHP in some mining thing or in a finance team, I like to find a example or story or inspiration from outside of that. I think like a little thing like banking. Like, I don't know where the rule was that banks are only going to be open between, 9 and 4, Monday to Friday, making an assumption that people are going to be there. And then when we got more service-oriented people from different backgrounds going, hang on, I can go and get a burger at 10 o'clock at night. And, I work shifts, so I can do this. So I think taking things from other industries, or even if you think about, well before your time, James, because you're too young, if you liked a song from an artist, you have to buy the whole CD. You don't have to do that now. It's the playlist economy, right? You're going, I want that one, and that one. I don't want the rest, and that's what I'll get. So I think finding examples from what other people are doing in other industries, you can always translate into go, all right, how can I apply that to my career or my business or my team?
Yeah, no, I think that's where a lot of like innovation comes from, is from people doing things in one area and that gets applied to a new area. And then that's like the idea is. It's not necessarily inventing something completely from scratch, there's just nothing similar. It's usually it's something that's been iterated on in a different area and that's now being used in a new way, and that's the new thing.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, cool. Well, I've got a couple, or maybe one more question for you because we're nearly at time. But the question for you is, I ask all the guests that come on the show this, and we've got graduate theory aimed at sort of uni students, early professionals. I wonder for yourself, looking back to who you were in the early years of your career and thinking what you were like at that stage, is there any advice that you would give the Dave Lourdes that that was sort of just starting out in his career, or is there any advice you'd give young people sort of starting their career today?
Have you got any time for another podcast? Because mate, my whole career and life has been a movie, a series of mistakes. So I'll tell you some of the ones I look back on that I wish I changed. I'm only grappling because I have so many. So thinking you shouldn't speak up or participate because you're too young or don't know enough, or it's not your area of expertise. I think one of the most important things that I wish I did earlier and more often was scaling gratitude and empathy. I don't think you can ever say thank you enough, and also caring about people. I would say I was overly goal oriented when I started, and wanted to, it was driven by ego to work on the big projects and feel good about myself for working these ridiculous hours. That was working hard, not smart. But having more of that empathy and understanding that everyone's different, being more grateful, having an unhealthy ego, sometimes asking, I wouldn't ask questions because I go, oh, well, that make me look stupid. If we all did that, no one would ask any questions, right? And so I think asking questions early on. A little one actually is attend work events. Like not attending work events, I think is a CLM. Not attending work events. A CLM is a career limiting move. You're part of the team, and it's no different to social events. Sometimes you can't be bothered, or you're tired, or whatever it may be. I think it's important to make the time to do that. I would have focused earlier and faster. Now I'm a manic. I love building relationships with people. I'm obsessed in that, and I did that in my career as well. But I would have started that earlier, building genuine relationships. And I'm a big believer in, if you don't schedule something, it won't happen. So in this example, if you say I'm going to read more, unless you do it at a certain time, I'm a big believer in it won't happen. Or if someone says I'm going to exercise, so I know for me, my exercise time Monday to Friday is 4:30 a.m. and on Saturdays is 6:30 a.m. I sleep in a little bit, and on Sunday I have a rest. So actually scheduling stuff. I think one of the most powerful things you can say to people that I wouldn't say back then, that I wish I started saying earlier, is I don't know. Instead of pretending I know or thinking I know and then having to go away and research it or something like that. I think that's an important one. Expect to get stuck. You just expect that it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It happens to all of us. It happens to us now. I would have asked for help earlier and faster. It's something that I definitely didn't do. And also I'm going to say, don't take a local issue and globalize it. And what I mean by that is, when you're being stuck is temporary, but it's a stain. It's not a tattoo. And by the way, I wish I knew all this back then. The other one that I learned actually from having a personal trainer, I don't know if you've ever had a personal trainer. That's an industry you want to get into, because a personal trainer, when you think you're dead, they go 5 more, and you hate them and you swear under your breath, at least I do, and then you give them money and come back next week. But the personal trainer mindset in my mind is they always say, come on, just one more, just one more. And when I first got a personal trainer, I remember his name was Michael. That really stuck with me about going, yeah. So whenever I think that I've reached my limit, is just one more, just one more. And that's helped me a lot. And if I could only pick one thing, James, it would be self-awareness is king. I've already talked about emotional intelligence, and within that they talk about 4 or 5 different markers of emotional intelligence. And for me, self-awareness is the beast. That's the one. If you can master that, you'll master your life. Knowing what excites you, knowing what deflates you, knowing what throws you off track, knowing what gets you back on track, knowing how you respond when you're confronted and your confidence goes down. So self-awareness, if I could only pick one out of all those, that was the one I wish I learned earlier, for sure. And I wish I got a coach earlier too. You better stop me. I'll bring more wishes up.
Well, we're right at the end now, so I wonder.
Okay.
Firstly, I want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your wisdom. It's been super fascinating, and I've got so many takeaways from our chat. So really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's 100% my pleasure.
But before we go, though, I do want to say, is there anywhere, so people are listening, they want to find out more about yourself, where should they go?
Well, my website's being done at the moment, but they can go to davelourdes.com. We can connect on LinkedIn. And in Facebook, I have a book I talked about using my experience as experiments before. I have a private Facebook group called the Leaders Lab. And I post things regularly in the Leaders Lab. It's a private group on Facebook. If they send me an invite there, I accept them all. And I post stuff in there, just little free bits of information, usually related to something around personal growth, leadership, or change. So, yeah, that's some of the places they could, find out some stuff.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, thanks so much, mate. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks. This was awesome. I love what you're doing to help people. This is awesome. It's awesome.
No. Thanks for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you want to get my takeaways, the things that I learnt from this episode, please go to graduatetheory.com/subscribe, where you can get my takeaways and all the information about each episode straight to your inbox. Thanks so much for listening again today, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week.